Everyone, this video is for Project Lead the Way IED Activity 1.2.5. We are working on example object number 2, again in Activity 1.2.5. I've got Fusion up here. I've got the data panel open. Let's go ahead and start a new file. I'm going to go ahead and hit save since this is an untitled file for right now. And we're going to call this example 2. Once we have our file saved, you'll see it pop up here in our data panel. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that with this waffle button, and let's get to dimensioning. As you saw in object number 1, I pasted a canvas, which we can use to kind of reference, and we're going to do that as well for object number 2 here. So before we get started with anything else, I'm going to hit Insert, and I'm going to move down over here to Canvas. And I'm going to go find a picture from my computer that I saved in advance. It's just there on my desktop. I'm going to place that on the plane that we're going to be sketching from. The first sketch that we're going to do is going to be an XY plane, so let's go ahead and choose that one to place our canvas as well. I'll pull it out slightly here to the side so it is out of our way, and hit OK. If I go to our front view now and I zoom in, we can see that I've got that reference drawing there to pull some dimensions as we model this object. Another important thing to note is in the last model, we changed our document settings to millimeters. This one is in inches, so I just want to double check. Now, we did not change any of our settings, so we should be good to go there. But if I hit this flyout, I can double check to make sure that our units are in fact in inches. So as we look at this object, let me go ahead and go back to my front view again. It's like a bit of a dumbbell shape, and I see quite a few features here. Let's go ahead and break this down and kind of think about how we're going to approach this modeling sequence. I see this base, if you want to call it that, this diameter or rounded base. Then we have a rectangular column that's going to be running up here through the middle, as well as a round top. And then within that column, it looks like we've got 3 holes running through it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6 different features in total here making up this object. And we're going to kind of work from the ground up. We're going to do this base, then the rectangular column, then the top, and then we'll work on these holes. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move back to my isometric view using my view cube, and we're going to create our first sketch. Zoom out to where I can find our origin, and yes, we're going to go ahead and sketch on the XY plane. Now for this first rounded base, let's go ahead and use our revolution command again. It's a command we just learned. It's got a diameter of 1.25 is the total diameter. So I'm going to be using a radius of half of that, doing half of 1.25, and I need to pay attention to my extrusion height here of 0.5 it looks like on our reference drawing. So I'm going to draw a 2-point rectangle starting on our origin. I'm going to use our dimensional constraint here, and I'm going to use a formula. So rather than typing in and doing the math maybe on my phone or something, I'm going to go ahead and place that constraint, and I'm going to say that this is 1.25 divided by 2, and hit enter. And it goes ahead and does that math for me, which is nice. I'm also going to go ahead and put a vertical constraint on here, which again was that 0.5 inches. I've got that rectangle now. We can go ahead and hit Finish Sketch, return to isometric using our view cube, and let's use that revolve command. It's automatically selected my profile. I need to select an axis, however, so I'm going to select the axis that is actually my Y axis off of my origin. It's also the left edge of the rectangle we drew, and you will see now that we've got this rounded base that we're going for. Go ahead and click OK, and our revolve has served us well. Now let's go ahead and create this rectangular column coming off of the top. I'm going to go ahead and just glance at our reference drawing again, just to get some dimensions here. And as I look at this, it looks like frankly, I think that we're missing a dimension. I would like to see maybe this total distance here, but assuming that these holes are centered within the column, I can see that we have a 0.25 dimension here going halfway. So I'm going to make the assumption that the entire column is going to be 0.5. And looking up here, it also looks like a square. So I'm going to make this a 0.5 by 0.5 square. Now I do think we need dimensions for that when we actually draw this. I do think that our reference here is incomplete and we should have those dimensions specified. So let's go ahead, start a sketch. We're going to work on the top of our base. Select that as our surface. We're going to draw a 2-point rectangle. Kind of covers over that origin. We're going to use a dimensional constraint here and make this 0.5 by 0.5. Now that covers our size of our feature, but we do need to include some extra constraints to locate it, some location constraints. So I'm going to make this 0.25. And that was a horizontal, so we'll also do a vertical here of 0.25. All of our lines are now black in color, which means they are fully constrained. So we can go ahead and hit finish sketch, and we're going to extrude this up. I'm kind of zooming in here on my reference again to see this extrusion height. We're gonna have to do some math again. So I'm gonna use a formula here. 2.5 is the total height. I've got my base of 0.5 and I've got my top of 0.25. So I'm gonna take those two things out. So when I make this extrusion, I'm gonna go to over extrude, select our profile here, which is that square. I'm gonna type in 2.5 minus 0.5 minus 0.25 and go ahead and hit enter. And that now gives us like an extrusion distance that would be the total of what's there. I can use this inspect tool, which is the default is measure under the inspect ribbon. And I can choose 2 points or an edge here. I'm going to just do 2 points. I'm going to inspect that and see that in fact our distance is 1.75, which makes a lot of sense. When I add 1.75 to 0.5 to 0.25, I do in fact get 2.5, our total height of our object. So we are good to go. Now let's go ahead and create our top. I did revolve for the first time around. I think this time around, let's just draw a circle and extrude. I think it'll be slightly easier. So I'm going to create a sketch on the top of our column. Use the circle command. I'm going to start in our origin. I'm going to pull it out roughly to the same size as the base. Kind of snapped onto that for me, but it is still blue, which means we still need to go ahead and put a dimension. You'll see it's slightly bigger, which is important. Always going to go back and double check. Diameter of 1.25. Go ahead and finish sketch and extrude this up. Now I don't want to just choose this outer perimeter. I want to make sure I choose both profiles. I'm going to select out here as well as that square profile. Now you see I have a complete circle, and we're going to extrude that up 0.25. Hit OK. And now we've got roughly this dumbbell looking shape. We've got 3 of our features. We just need now the holes that run through the column here in the center. So let's tackle that. We're going to start a sketch. And we're going to select this surface facing the front view as it is oriented also in our reference picture. If I zoom in here, you can see that those holes are on this little face here. And so we're going to do the same and select this face on our dumbbell. Okay, I'm going to draw 3 circles here, and we're going to learn a couple new commands as well to kind of fully constrain this. So I'm just going to kind of drop 3 circles in place. Oh boy, that was pretty rough. Going all over the place. I'm going to go ahead and control the size of our first circle, which looks to be a diameter of 0.25 for all of them. So I'm going to use the dimension constraint, and I'll pull this out here and do 0.25. Specify that. Now, certainly you can use the same dimensional constraint on all of them, but I'm going to show you a couple of other things we can do. Let's use this equal constraint. Underneath my constraints ribbon, if I use that, I can select my base, where the reference point, which is this one that I've already set as size. Excuse me. And I can left click on these other drawings, these other circles, to make it the same size as well. Goodness, something stuck in my throat there. So I'm going to hit this equal constraint one more time. Choose the first circle that we've already constrained, and then select that second one. And now you'll see that all of these circles have this little equal constraint next to it. That's going to make sure that they're all sitting there at the same size. And now we can also locate this first circle. I'm going to go back to my standard dimension constraint, and I'm going to put in the distance of 0.5 there. Pull that off of the edge. And we can do that as well. I think it's probably just going to be fastest that we just continue with that 0.5 dimension for all of them as our reference drawing shows. Perfect. All right, looking good there. And we need to center this within our object, and there's a couple ways we can do that as well. I think one of the ways that we can look at doing that, let's experiment with this, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. I'm going to draw that line from midpoint to midpoint here all the way through my column. Something else, just a feature I wanted to show you. Now I have this line, but I'm just going to use it as a reference point. I don't actually want this in my model. So what I can do is hit escape to get out of my line command, and I'm going to select that line. And notice that underneath the sketch palette, I've got this line type here. And if I left click on that line, I can change the line type to a construction line. And that is something that won't be physically present in the model. It's just something that I can reference. And then when I use that, I can also then either use my coincident, I can use a horizontal vertical, I can perhaps use that line to make sure that these circles all stay in alignment. So let's see if I can do a coincident between this circle and that line. Now it fully constrained my first circle, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Let's see if I can do that for the second circle as well. I sure can. And the third circle, So that's one way that we can fully constrain that is just by using a construction line and using the coincident uh, constraint to fully constrain these circles. That's one method of going about doing it. Another method would be to put a horizontal dimension here with the first circle, and then using the horizontal vertical constraint to make sure that these other two are aligned vertically with our first one. That would be a couple different ways that we could go about fully constraining this picture. Now this third circle does look a little high. Let's just double check, but in fact, that is the same thing that we have here. So I think we are good to go with the holes that we'll be creating with these circles. We're going to hit Finish Sketch, use our View Cube to go into Isometric. We're going to do an extrusion, and we're going to make sure we select all three of these circles. Now, I want to make a cut. I don't want to make a new body or join. We're going to cut into the object, so I want to make sure this is negative. I'm going negative 0.5, which should take it all the way through the object. Hit OK. I'm going to use our free orbit just to lightly spin this around to make sure that, yes, I do in fact have holes going all the way through my object. That canvas is sitting here. We don't need that anymore. You could leave it. It's not going to hurt anything, just like our construction line is not going to hurt anything. I'm going to go underneath canvases here and delete that out just because we're done with it. Hit Save just to make sure our work is saved. And this is a video showing you how to create object example number 2 in activity 1.2.5 for PLCW IED.